Football is a dangerous game. Deciding that at halftime. See me after class. It's Jay. I am the author of Maximize Your Medicare. You can find it on Amazon.com. Go to the website, maximizeyourmedicare.com. I've got links up there that will direct you to a lot of different resources, all things Medicare, as well as financial planning. As always, today's podcast is not financial advice. Repeat after me, not financial advice. While I have licenses to do so, and certainly the background to give individual financial advice today in public, that is not the case. I would have to know a lot more about you in order to give you a specific recommendation. Okay, all of that kind of stuff out of the way, I wanted to address something which is very available on advertisements, YouTube, everywhere you go. You've got these comparisons of Medigap plans. The last podcast up on the YouTube channel, Maximize Your Medicare, on the YouTube channel, you can see my comparison of Plan F and Plan G. Today, what we're going to do is we're going to compare Plan F and G versus Plan N. So we're going to step back a few steps here and talk about Medigap generally. Right? Number one is the plans are standardized down to the letter, meaning Plan N from Carrier 1 is the same as Plan N from Carrier 2. That does not mean that the prices are the same. That does not mean that the increases in the future are the same. All it means is that the terms and conditions of Plan N from Carrier 1 are the same as Plan N from Carrier 2. One of the reasons I haven't really been a very active posting person on YouTube as well as on podcasts regarding how to actually go through the comparison process is because it's so individualized and because the subtle points in here are actually a lot more complicated than you're being told. A lot more complicated. Generically speaking, what you see on an advertisement, hey, Plan N is good value compared to Plan G. See, we're $10 to $15 cheaper than Plan G if you're interested in Plan N. Yeah, and you know what? That's true. That is quite true. The sticker price of Plan N is going to be lower than Plan G at the same carrier. That should be the case in every instance. Why is that? Point A, under Plan N, you are required to pay for office visits. Up to $20 for your primary care physician or a specialist. Up to $20, not to exceed $20 for an office visit. So this is known, and so now that explains part of the price differential. Today's podcast is actually not about that. Because the reality is that you could be charged $5 or you could be charged $20. And for those persons that do not see a doctor every month, right, it is very difficult to predict, what the actual value of this price differential or the office visit charge actually is. And that I will leave to the person, meaning the individual. Today's podcast is actually talking about the second difference, which is the Part B excess charge. Under Plan N, the policyholder, you are responsible for the Part B excess charge. For Plan G, the carrier is responsible for the Part B excess charge. So now let's just go through a simple example of what in the world does this excess charge actually mean. Okay, let's just take the simple example. In public, I give this presentation. In public, I give this type of presentation to groups large and small. And the way I try to explain it is the following. Let's just say you have hip replacement surgery and the sticker price, according to the CMS, is $30,000. So by sticker price, this is the amount that Medicare believes that in your location, this value, they assign a value per operation in this instance to what it's actually worth. What you are not told is that under Part B excess charge, the orthopedic surgeon in this instance, on services it renders under Part B, has the legal right to charge 15%, 15% more than this $30,000. So 15% of $30,000 is $4,500. Under Plan N, you are responsible for the overage here, this additional 15%. Now, Medicare plus Medicare supplement carrier will pay up to the $30,000. However, the overage, this 15%, that is the policy holder's responsibility. That means you. So now you can see the difference, and you can see it readily. Because now let's take a more extreme case, and now let's call it chemotherapy. Let's call it infusion or some other dramatic type of therapy that requires Part B services. Now this number has an extra digit. It is now not a $10,000 activity. It is a $100,000 activity. And now the difference of this 15% is $15,000. So I'm not Chicken Little, right? I don't wake up every day thinking, okay, the sky is falling and this type of thing is going to occur to me. And I don't want persons to misunderstand my message here today as thinking, oh, well, you need to actually go without eating in order to pay for this differential. No, I did not say that. And remember, today is not financial advice. So that is different, however, for a couple of reasons. So I'm going to discuss two of them. And these are the ones that people should focus on. Number one, you could say that a doctor is not going to charge the excess charge. But the reality is that presumes that the doctor remains satisfied with the level of compensation that he or she receives for his services. Now, an everyday person, you could say, okay, well, of course a doctor is happy with their services and the amount. Anecdotal evidence tells you something very, very differently from that. In other words, if you ask your doctor, specialist, do you think you're fairly compensated by the way that the government has charged? I'm pretty sure the answer will not be uniformly yes. It gets worse from there. Not better, it gets worse. Why? There is the stuff you don't control. And what is that? First up, demographic reality. 59 million people on Medicare. 10,000 people a day turning 65. That we know for certain. This is not some type of random event. This is happening, period. There is no getting around it. When you consider that and enormous government debt, what do you have? The only practical way to push down the amount of government debt, given the influx of persons who are going to become Medicare eligible, if someone appointed me the bean counter, reality is I simply push down the premium, I simply push down the amount that I will pay to the doctor. Period. That's the fastest, cleanest way to do so. We don't need my advanced degrees in accounting and finance, which I do have. We don't need them. All we need is your common sense to understand this. Look, this isn't necessarily sustainable over time that you would continue. Something has to be chosen here. Now, maybe that's today, and maybe that's tomorrow, and maybe that's in 10 years. We don't know that. We don't have a crystal ball. However, now let's take a look at it, how it compares to Plan N and Plan G. So let's just take Ann Arbor. Ann Arbor, Michigan, as most persons know, college town, highly educated, home of a, nationally certainly known medical center. So it has a lot of resources. Its costs are fairly well controlled. The difference in pricing between Plan N and Plan G, $10 a month. So now we have it, right? Which is that Plan N and Plan G at $10 a month is the tax that you are paying for these two factors that I've just mentioned. Number one, office visits, right? So $10 a month times 12 months is $120 difference a year. So under Plan G, you do not have to pay for the office visit. Under Plan N, you do. So those of you who go monthly, right? And let's just call it $5 of an office visit. Okay, so there's half of the $10 monthly differential in premium. And then $5 for the excess Part B excess charges. This is the misunderstanding here about the way that financial contracts work, the way that insurance works, the way that any financial contract works where the outcome is uncertain. The way to understand it is the $5 a month you are paying extra for Plan G here has to do this incremental $5, right? $5 I've explained due to office visit costs. $5 I'm saying is this is you covering the chance that something else beyond your control goes wrong. Now, the $5 may not be as important. This explanation can be extended in almost every possible way, kind of like Rubik's Cube, right? You twist around Rubik's Cube or a kaleidoscope. You turn the angle just ever so slightly differently and look at it just slightly differently compared to all my other counterparts on YouTube. Hey, you can save this extra money and we can save like $30 a month. Well, I'm going to get to that at the end, right? Which is that what you need to be doing is comparing the best Plan N versus the best Plan G across carriers, multiple carriers. I've just described to you that one carrier, Plan N, may be $10 less a month than Plan G. But at another carrier, their Plan N may be much lower. Okay. That's up to the consumer. That's up to the consumer. Right? So, in other words, the couple takeaways from today's podcast are the following. Number one is to fully understand what you are actually doing when you're choosing Plan G versus Plan N and assigning the value of what is not included in Plan N compared to Plan G. And the second one is the basis by which you're actually comparing the prices must be across carriers. It cannot be at one carrier by itself. And the reason is the different carriers have different motivations. The different carriers have different competitive reasons. They want to get greater market share. They have a particular view. They have a business priority list. None of this is at the policyholder's control. None of it's under your control. It's not under my control. Right? I'm a price taker here. I don't get to manipulate the price. I don't get to change the price, not by 1 penny a month. All I can do is report to you these important differences that I mentioned here on this podcast, and then also report to you the pricing. And from there, the consumer chooses. Hopefully this has been helpful. Please subscribe to the YouTube channel and to this podcast. They are going to be slightly different. MaximizeYourMedicare.com. That's the website for the book. On that website, you can subscribe to the free weekly newsletter. The podcast, the videos, those are going to be benchmarks. They're not really going to be talking about everyday events and about my commentary about everyday matters, the headlines that I see, which in today's day and age, you can understand be very, very difficult to tell what is the signal and what is the noise. The newsletter, I swerve out of the way to try to say, hey, dear public, do you understand you're being told A, but the facts are actually leaving out these vital important elements, which are point B. This is happening. You know this. I'm sure you can perceive this. And given the political climate, I don't think this is going to end anytime soon. That's it for today. I'm Jay. Hope you've enjoyed today's episode. Please subscribe and please share with others. You can find this podcast on iTunes. Please rate it there or anywhere else that you can listen to podcasts. Next time.